This is Dr. Wysong. This series of videos on the big questions of life will show where each one of us is led if we dare to leave behind preconceived ideas and see where reason and evidence lead. Skeptics and Debunkers. Given reason, science, quantum physics in particular, and the evidence of phenomena outside of materially normal bounds, weird things are just real things we're unable to easily grasp. There is no supernatural, only natural. No paranormal, only normal. But without this understanding, weird things are not a gateway to exploration and enlightenment, but rather an opportunity for dimensionally stuck brains to witch hunt. It's impossible and ridiculous. In the early 1900s, when Wilbur and Orville Wright flew their plane, Scientific American dismissed the event as a hoax. Simon Newcomb, a professor of mathematics and astronomy at Johns Hopkins University, showed scientifically that powered human flight was, quote, utterly impossible. For 5 years, people looked up at the plane flying overhead, but there was general denial that it ever left the ground. Even after Edison lit up Menlo Park around his laboratory with incandescent lights, scientists protested that Edison had a positive want of knowledge of the electrical circuit, and that the whole thing was a completely idiotic idea. He was called the sorcerer of Menlo Park and told that what he was attempting would never be technically feasible. When Charles Parson invented the turbine and claimed it would greatly increase the speed of ships, the Admiralty told him that such a feat was impossible. The turbojet was also labeled an impossibility. When Baird developed the television, those who observed it were convinced it was all a trick or something equally disreputable. Even the discoverer of radio waves, Heinrich Hertz, warned Guglielmo Marconi that he was wasting his time with experiments on wireless broadcasting. When William Röntgen announced his discovery of X-rays, Lord Kelvin, author of almost 700 scientific papers, 70 inventions, creator of the absolute zero Kelvin temperature scale, and perhaps the greatest physicist of the 1800s, remarked that X-rays were nothing but an elaborate hoax. Immanuel Velikovsky's idea in 1950 about the violent history of Earth contradicted the vogue slow and steady uniformitarian view of Earth history. His various predictions, such as the high temperature of Venus and the projected magnetic field of the Earth, were called by scientists intellectually fraudulent, dynamically impossible, and too ridiculous to merit serious rebuttal. Macmillan, the publisher of his book, Worlds in Collision, was forced to stop printing it due to pressure from their academic textbook buyers, even though Velikovsky's book was their biggest moneymaker. The noted British astronomer Sir Harold Spencer Jones pronounced that space travel is bunk 2 weeks before Sputnik 1 was launched into orbit. This only begins the shameful and dispiriting catalog of intolerance by supposedly rational and dispassionate scientists and their vassals. Advance seems to only ever occur by struggling against the tide of opposition, not because of cool, principled devotion to reason and science. Debunkers. With that as a backdrop, it's little wonder that the paranormal and metaphysical have not been embraced by materialists, evolutionists, and religionists. The primary journal in the paranormal field is the Journal of Parapsychology. It contains research that is primarily privately funded and has a readership of about 800. On the other hand, the Skeptical Inquirer, a publication of the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal, does not conduct research relevant to discovery, but rather is in the business of debunking. It has a circulation of 50,000, demonstrating again that people, including scientists, are much more given to protecting status quo than venturing into the realm of new ideas. When trying to prove that there is no correlation between the position of Mars and the birth of gifted athletes, such scientific evidence actually does exist, the debunkers reportedly fudged data. In another instance, to disprove ESP experiments at Duke University where subjects in one building guessed the cards, in another, a debunker from the debunking organization proposed that the subject only pretended not to be in the building where the cards were. The debunker claimed that the subject surreptitiously gained access to the building where the cards were and crawled through the attic to view the cards through a hole in the ceiling. That the blueprints of the building showed such a scenario impossible didn't matter. This proof of ESP fraud remained in this debunking publication long after it was proven that the fraud was on the debunking publication's part. Consider crop circles. When some circles were traced to hoaxers, traipsing on birds held by ropes in their hands, scientists around the world who had been unable to rationally explain the phenomenon heaved a great sigh of relief. Die-hard believers then appeared genuinely foolish. But as the phenomenon has continued around the world and has been traced to dates prior to the identified hoaxers, it's again re-emerging as a genuine mystery. But the thought police will forever cite the hoaxes as a reason for carte blanche dismissal regardless of what evidence comes forward. When there is found to be fraud with the preternatural and the unusual weird things that we've discussed previously, this is taken as proof that all of it is a fraud. But on the other hand, materialists and religionists ushering such criticism would never even consider dismissing their beliefs, regardless of how many frauds have been found or how dangerous their doctrines may be. Any failures, frauds, or adverse consequences that result from accepted beliefs are merely taken to mean more research money is needed to winnow the truth from the corruption. So long as the sacrosanct creeds are kept hallowed, no amount of adverse or contrary data or evidence matters. In the meantime, any supplemental view of reality, such as metaphysics, or evidence in support of it, such as paranormal events, is summarily dismissed if there can be found the slightest hint of fraud. Miracles are normal. Debunkers reject the metaphysical claim that they take no stock in miracles. Yet every day they accept miracles. For example, the miracle of an egg the size of the period at the end of this sentence, developing into a self-aware human with a body that becomes alive and marshals trillions of synchronized speed-of-light biochemical events occurring every second. Or the miracle of us safely riding on the Earth's spaceship, spinning and traveling at more than 1,000,000 miles per hour. Or the miraculous presence of immutable natural laws of gravity, motion, electricity, thermodynamics, and so on, that make each moment possible. In fact, our entire world of existence is miraculous, since it cannot be explained or accounted for. The existence of an immortal soul, a spirit realm, and a creator is just as believable as earthly life and the miracles that make it possible. Professional witch hunting. From the ranks of scientific apologists come contract debunkers, such as from the debunking organization I previously mentioned, and the Amazing Randy and the Penn and Teller television program called Bullshit. Thought policing literature and internet sites abound to protect us from the encroachment of those who would dare to tread on materialistic hallowed ground. Their advertised purpose is to protect the public from charlatans who would fleece them of their hard-earned cash. Certainly there's no reason for tolerance of fraud, but if Mrs. Jones spent $25 for a seance, where a thumping and jumping table had been rigged with invisible wires operated by a huckster who moaned like a ghost from behind a curtain, does that merit the hysteria and call to arms we see from the ranks of the debunkers? Belief in ESP, OBE, NDE, metal bending, intelligent design, life after death, prayer, or regression hypnosis does not threaten civilization. On the other hand, the materialistic dogma at the helm of today's science, religion, and politics threatens the very existence of life on the planet. This out-of-whack situation reminds me of the current clash between conventional materialistic medicine and the holistic alternative medicine. The medical profession en masse, the FDA, licensing boards, journals, research institutions, and the media are quick to point to any evidence of instances where alternative medical care may not work or is harmful. On the other hand, heaven forbid if there is a report of somebody somewhere getting sick from taking vitamins, usually synthetic versions if there is ever an incident, or an herb at 100 times the dose for an elephant. When that happens, everybody piles on, and the alternative movement is cast as a scam to part people from their money. At the same time, right under our noses, trillions of dollars per year are spent on conventional allopathic materialistic medical care that is killing more people than any other single cause. There's not a peep of protest from the mainstream. It's supposed to be the very nature of science, inquiry, to be open, not close the door for the exception, the extraordinary, the weird. Mere vexation is not a reason to reject an idea. It's science and reason, not malarkey, which leads us to the conclusion that reality is timeless, holistic, and intelligent. This in turn easily accommodates all the quirky and lunatic phenomena. Abductions, emotions in plants, life after death, healing with prayer, remote viewing, and the rest are perfectly plausible as long as one does not believe that human senses and touchy-feely matter define the universe. But the fleet of quackbusters is robust and plentiful, including the media and even government agencies. The goal is to scour the countryside and rid it of the machinations of scammers, defined as any who question accepted materialistic and religious dogma. The debunkers always position themselves as the calm voice of reason, reining us into the supposed sure footing of materialism, evolution, or religion. Strawman arguments, life ceases at death because the brain turns to dust, and a higher intelligence can't be true because evolution is true, and there is evil in the world, are always put out front in order to ridicule and easily dismiss opponents. If there is a place for skepticism, it should be toward any belief that does not foster a higher human goal and condition. Materialism, evolution, and religion, not metaphysics, qualifies for that. The spawn of these beliefs includes wars, weapons of mass destruction, environmental destruction, political hegemony, medical care that treats effects rather than causes, faiths that blind people to reality, and so on, encompassing all the irrational causes of human misery.
Thank you for listening. Keep in mind that solving the big questions requires foundations upon which truthful answers can be built. So please work through the series sequentially. This information has taken decades of research, thought, and writing. Aside from the peace of mind the solutions have brought me, the only reward I seek is hearing that it's helped you. Feel free to contact me with any comments or questions at asifThinkingMatters.com.